Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Vancouver Resource Investment Conference channel. My name is Jesse Day, and we are blessed to be joined today by the economic geologist and senior advisor to Exploration Insights, Brent Cook. Welcome to the show.
Glad to be here. Thanks for the time.
Thank you for being here. And now that we're kicking off 2023, I wanted to ask what the main tailwinds you're currently seeing for the precious metals are.
I think demand, for the most part, I think we're going to see a lot more demand as the general markets level off, or in fact, we head into a recession. I think inflation is going to moderate, if you will. I think that's going to be positive for the precious metals. And yet, the real issue we're facing in the metal sector across the board almost is a lack of new mine development to replace what's being mined. And we can go into that a lot more detail, but I think that's the main driving force behind the metals, particularly anyone who can come up with an economic discovery that's going to drive a buyout from a larger mining company.
So let's shift to the equities then. The broader market obviously took quite a beating in 2022, and a lot of the mining stocks went down along with it. So at this point in time, are you seeing a lot of opportunity due to that undervaluation in both gold and silver mining equities at the moment?
Yeah, without a doubt, without a doubt. I mean, we're looking at companies that are trading at the prices they were trading at a couple of years ago when gold was, down in that 1500 range, and gold's at 1800 now. Yet the equities, for the most part, have not caught up, and they've, for the most part, or a lot of them, they've, their valuation or the value of what they've got in the ground has increased considerably by the gold price and by work they've done in terms of drilling and proving out resources. So yeah, I'm seeing a lot of opportunity out there.
And so, what are you planning to do as we move into the new year here? When it comes to investing in mining equities, do you tend to look at the exploration space, developers, producers? Is it a mix of all three? How do you approach things?
It's really a mix of all three. What I'm really after, for the most part, is early stage exploration. That's what Joe Mazumdar does in Exploration Insights, and that's sort of what I try and do as well. I try and focus on 20 companies or less in terms of my own portfolio, and it's probably a mix of mostly exploration, some development, and a couple of producers. Um, I think the key is to recognize when a company has something that's economic, and the news continues to demonstrate that whatever they're drilling out or finding or looking for has economic potential. So many deposits that are found and so many prospects are really garbage, and they'll always be garbage. And you see companies wasting money on those. I guess that's what I try and avoid.
Right. I wanted to ask a question about management of mining companies because it's something that I hear come up again and again when people talk about the importance of management. For someone like yourself, I think it's easier to be able to speak with management to get a sense of what they're all about. But for your average retail investor, that can be tough because for the most part, you're kind of just looking at a bio on a website. Now, of course, at the Vancouver Resource Investment Conference coming up, we're going to have a lot of these CEOs there. Retail investors will be able to approach them and actually talk to them face to face. But how does the average retail investor who may not be attending a conference get over that sort of conundrum of finding out what the management team is really about?
I think the first thing you need to look at is the company's website. How well is it put together? How well is the information presented? I mean, that tells you a lot about the guy managing it or the gal managing the company. News releases. I think it's really key when a company puts out a news release to have a couple paragraphs, very briefly, easily explaining what's going on to your average investor. But then the second part, I want to see details in terms of maps, cross sections, assays, meter by meter, or pulling out a high grade section so you know what's going on. And although you may not understand exactly what's being said, just seeing that information tells you the company management is trying to, give you the information so you can make that decision. And honestly, I think in this sector, if you're not, a geologist or mining engineer, or not connected with someone like that, it really helps to have advice, particularly in the junior side of things, where every company's got a fantastic flip book, and every company's on to the next big discovery, which we know is bullshit.
Right, right. Very practical advice. I hadn't considered that before about the website layout and the information presented therein. That makes a lot of sense. So there's a lot of talk about a shift in perspective in the investment world out there from overvalued tech stocks to tangible assets in the form of commodities. We had Tavi Costa on the show recently, and he said he believes we're at the precipice of a decade-long bull cycle for commodities. Are you seeing the same thing? And if so, could you tell us which commodities you think will be the biggest winners outside of the precious metals?
Yeah, for sure. I think that makes sense to me. Again, going back to what I said earlier on, it takes in the order of 10 to 20 years from discovery to production of a large economic deposit. So we're looking at demand increasing, certainly in copper and some of the energy related metals, yet production is not going to keep up with that. So there's a lot of deposits out there, not a lot, actually, there's a few deposits out there that are really not, good looking. And it's going to take time for them to come into production. So yeah, I see that looking 10 years out, copper is probably the main thrust of what Joe and I are investing in, just because it's such a used commodity. You probably all heard how that's critical in the new energy environment and for electric cars and that sort of thing. So copper, precious metals, platinum, palladium, rare earths, that sort of thing for sure. Yeah, platinum, palladium is another one, and nickel, that we're into. And there's a couple of projects in Brazil we're invested in.
Very interesting. The VRIC is coming up on the 29th and 30th. The links below, free tickets, so definitely check that out. I'm wondering what you're planning to present at this year's VRIC.
I have no fucking idea. No, that's not true. What I generally try and do is educate the audience with some examples of companies that have done good work, and how you can recognize good work, and likewise who have done poor work, and how to recognize a failure, if you will. And I think that's key. Is the most of my time, and Joe's as well, is looking for the fatal flaw in a company's project or a company, because we know 90+% of the prospects out there that companies are working on are going to fail at some point. So if you can identify something early on that looks good, but more importantly, recognize the fatal flaw as the stock price rises before the market does, we've made a lot of money on that before the fatal flaw gets recognized across the board. So recognizing that fatal flaw is key. And so that's kind of what I spend a lot of time talking about.
Great. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. For those who want to hear more from you, where should they go online? And maybe you could tell us a little bit about Exploration Insights as well.
Exploration Insights is the place to go. I used to own it. I've sold it to Joe. I'm still involved. I'm still a partner of sorts. But Joe Mazumdar is probably one of the better, not probably he is definitely the best analyst I'm aware of. And so there's lots of free information on there, explorationinsights.com, interviews, articles, that sort of thing. I'm also on Twitter, although Brent Cook Geo is my handle there. Joe's on Twitter, but that's where I would go. Those two places.
Great. Well, I'll put links in the description below.
Yeah,
And
thank you.
looking forward to seeing you in Vancouver.
It's going to be a good show. I think it's the right time to be there looking at these companies right now.
We actually need to have a damn good recession.
The Russian economy is a gas station run by the mafia.
$41 trillion has been created out of nothing.
There's a stranglehold in China on most of these resources.
The outlook and fundamentals for the metals remains very, very strong.